Just off the bustling modern lanes of the A429 outside Warwick, the modern world begins to bleed away. If you stand by the banks of the River Avon as the morning mist rolls in, the trees seem to lean closer, whispering names from a forgotten age. The woods of Warwickshire hold secrets that the concrete highways have entirely erased from our memory. Most people know this county for Shakespeare or the towering ramparts of Warwick Castle, but if you follow the water downstream, past the dark shadows of Blacklow Hill, you find a place of jagged rock and deep water, a place known for centuries as Guy's Cliffe. It is a crumbling romantic ruin today, a shell of stone choked by ivy, but beneath the collapsed roofs and hollow windows lies the true heart of the mystery. A sheer cliff face and a dark, hand-carved cave. Because before the grand mansion was ever built, this cliff belonged to a giant, a warrior, a man who conquered the world, only to hide himself away in the dark. If you want to unearth the hidden history buried right beneath our feet across Warwickshire, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Together, we are exploring the places the guidebooks leave behind. But to understand the cave, we have to understand the man who carved it. Let us go back to the 10th century. Saxon England. Guy was not born into royalty. He was merely the son of the steward of the Earl of Warwick. But he committed the most dangerous mistake a young man of low birth could make. He fell desperately in love with Felice, the Earl's beautiful daughter. Felice, however, was not easily won. She demanded a husband of unmatched glory, and so, to win her hand, Guy set out across Europe and the Holy Land, transforming himself into the ultimate knight-errant. The old chronicles tell us his deeds were monstrously legendary. He didn't just fight men, he fought nightmares. He travelled across the country, slaying a massive dun cow that was terrorising the folk on Dunsmore Heath near Rugby, a beast said to be 6 yards high. He slaughtered a giant boar at Windsor and even faced down a terrifying dragon in Northumberland. He became the champion of England, the shield of the realm. When he finally returned to Warwickshire, covered in scars and unmatched glory, the Earl could no longer deny him. Guy and Felice were married in a grand ceremony. He inherited the earldom. He possessed wealth, power, land, and the love of the most desirable woman in England. He had everything, and then came the crushing weight of the conscience. It happened at the absolute height of his success. Guy looked at his hands that had taken countless lives in the name of ambition and romance, the blood of the Crusades, the slaughter of his enemies. It began to haunt his waking hours. A deep spiritual sickness took hold of the great knight. He realized he had fought for pride, for vanity, for a woman's love, but never for God. And so, 40 days after his wedding, Sir Guy made a choice that shocked the kingdom. He renounced his wealth. He stripped off his heavy armour, wrapped himself in a simple, rough pilgrim's cloak, and walked out of the gates of Warwick Castle. He left his title, his lands, and his pregnant wife, Felice. He vanished into the unknown as a nameless beggar, walking the dusty paths of exile, seeking forgiveness for a lifetime of violence. For decades, Felice wept for him, gazing out from the castle walls across the Avon, entirely unaware if her husband was dead or alive. Decades passed. An old, weathered man returned to Warwickshire. His hair was a wild mane of white, his skin was leathery and scarred.
I had left them all behind in the ash.
His voice a raspy whisper.
May the great
It was
Lord
Sir
show
Guy,
them the mercy I never could.
but no one recognised him. Not the guards at the gate, not the locals tending the fields near Leamington Spa. No one. He did not return to the castle to claim his throne. Instead, he sought out a secluded, wild spot along the riverbank, an ancient sacred cliffside that had once been used by Saxon hermits. Here, with his bare hands and a few crude tools, Guy carved his sanctuary out of the living rock, a cold, damp cave, barely large enough to stand in. This was the champion of England's new home. For over 2 years, the great Sir Guy lived as a hermit in the rock. He slept on the freezing stone floor. He listened to the constant, rhythmic rushing of the River Avon. He survived on nothing but water from a nearby natural spring. A spring you can still see today, flowing clear and cold from the hillside. But the most tragic twist of the legend was yet to come. Every single day, the lonely Countess Felice would distribute alms, bread and silver pennies to the poor and destitute of the area. She did this at her manor house, just a short walk from the cliff, hoping to glean some favour from heaven for her lost husband. And every day, the old, unkempt hermit from the cave would walk up the hill to receive bread from her very fingers. Think of the agonizing irony. Felice looked into the eyes of the man she had wept over for 20 years and saw only a wretched beggar. Guy looked upon the face of his beloved wife, but stayed entirely silent. He had sworn a vow of absolute humility. To reveal his identity would be to reclaim his earthly pride. So he took the bread, bowed his head, and walked back down to his dark cave, alone. You might wonder how a wife could fail to recognize her own husband, but time, grief, and the brutal elements of a Warwickshire winter can change a man beyond recognition. In the year 929, the old hermit's body finally began to fail him. Lying on the dirt floor of the cave,
Lord,
feeling the
have
icy
mercy
grip
on
of
my
death
soul.
approaching, Guy knew his vow was fulfilled. He called for a local herd boy and handed him his old signet ring. A heavy piece of gold Felice knew intimately. He told the boy to take it to the Countess at the castle. When Felice saw the ring, the world stood still. She rushed down the rocky path, her servants straining to keep pace, her heart hammering against her ribs. She crossed the threshold into the dark, damp cave and collapsed to her knees. But it was too late. Guy was in his final moments. He opened his eyes, looked at his beautiful Felice one last time, and passed away in her arms. The grief was absolute. The old texts say that Felice was so utterly broken by the tragedy that just 15 days later, she followed him to the grave. They were buried together, right there, inside the very cave where Guy had spent his final, agonizing years of penance. Centuries later, King Henry V visited the spot. So moved by the story, he ordered a chantry chapel to be built over the cave, complete with a massive 8-foot-tall stone statue of Sir Guy. Today, Guy's Cliffe is a shadow of its former self. The mansion built around the chapel in the 18th and 19th centuries is now a ruined shell, private and heavily protected, occasionally echoing with the boots of local historians or the whispers of those tracking paranormal activity. But the cliff face remains unchanged. The cave is still there. The next time you walk along the footpaths near the Saxon Mill pub or watch the waters of the Avon churn over the old weir, pause for a second. Listen closely to the wind rustling through the Warwickshire reeds, because the spirit of the old knight, the giant who gave up everything for a quiet piece of stone, is still carved deep into the landscape. Where's everyone watching from? Anyone from Warwickshire, or even further afield? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching CV4 Productions. Keep exploring, everyone, and I'll see you at the next hidden corner